Hello ladies, gentlemen, and persons in between. My name is Tim Snowborn, and today I thought we'd take a break from politics and talk about the difference between Eastern and Western Enlightenment on this episode of Serious Issues. So what follows here is a summary of a portion of the guidebook to Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is by itself an interesting read. I recommend it. It does a good job of covering the different philosophies in the original book. There's a great line in here where they point out that what we call objects are simply slower processes than what we call events. Tell that one to your stoner friends and watch their heads explode. In the East, enlightenment refers to the transformative experience of fully comprehending the illusory, dreamlike nature of reality, of realizing that there is really no separation between the person that you think is in here and the world that you see out there, the Tattvam Asi philosophy that I mentioned in a previous video. In the West, enlightenment usually refers to the Enlightenment, a period of revolutionary thought mainly taking place between the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe. Western enlightenment refers to submitting to the rule of reason. It means never taking the word of an authority, at least not an authority alone. You can consult an authority in your pursuit of the truth, but those authorities are presumed to have attained their mastery through rigorous intellectual trials and scientific method, as opposed to esoteric or mystical sources. Submission to the rule of reason means you don't make grandiose claims about the truth or reality based on subjective personal experience. You first have to boil those experiences down to a clearly articulated, dispassionate set of truth claims, and then those claims have to go through a kind of trial in the court of reason. They have to pass every test of logic and be supported by at least some of the claims that have passed through the court before. As the book points out, what makes you enlightened in the Western sense is not whether or not your claims are proven to be true, but rather your commitment to abide by the verdict of the court, regardless of what it is. That makes you enlightened in the Western sense. Now the question is, can you be enlightened in both senses? Can you fully comprehend the illusory nature of reality and remain committed to the absolute authority of logic and reason? The book seems skeptical, but it leaves the door open to that possibility. My answer would certainly be no for a variety of reasons. First of all, Western logic presumes that subjects and objects are separate from each other, which runs counter to that Tattvam Asi philosophy that I mentioned before. If you believe that there is a separation between subjects and objects, then you can't be enlightened in the Eastern sense. Secondly, if you believe in enlightenment in the Western sense, then you don't put your faith in untested subjective personal experience. You're apt to regard the Enlightenment experience and all of the lesser experiences leading up to it with a healthy dose of suspicion. Third, from an Eastern mystical standpoint, the practice of reducing your experiences to a set of truth claims is counterproductive. Mystics believe that words are the least reliable conveyor of truth. Words are subject to interpretation, and they're just not capable of encapsulating the truth or reality of big concepts like God or love. It reminds me of a quote that I read a long time ago. It was originally attributed to Charles Schulz, the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, but I've Googled it and have not found it attributed to him anywhere on the internet. But anyway, the quote says, you not only can't describe love, you really can't even talk about it. That's how mystics feel about reality and truth and love and God and all those really big concepts that people kind of argue about. They think that anything you say about those things only carries you away from the reality of them. They believe that things like that can only be understood through a non-intellectual process. You can't think your way to enlightenment in the Eastern sense. Seeing the true nature of reality, they believe, comes from emptying your head of all thoughts and illusions, rather than filling them with the kind of rigorous mental trials that your words and thoughts would have to survive in the court of reason. This is getting a bit off topic, but if Eastern Enlightenment sounds too New Age hoity-toity to you, think of it as the simulation theory. In the Eastern sense, they kind of believe that reality is a simulation, and an enlightened person is someone who sees through that illusory nature. It's someone who understands the nature of the simulation we're all in. And from that perspective, the logic and reason that the West puts so much faith in doesn't make any sense or is meaningless. So tell me what you think, guys. Do you think it's possible to be enlightened in the Eastern and the Western sense? Do you think that Eastern Enlightenment is really a thing? Or do you think that people who claim to be enlightenment and be able to see through the illusory nature of reality are all just crazy or delusional in some way? Thank you for joining me for this discussion. I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time in another episode of Serious Issues.